are Ted Pappas and Catherine Eaton, who are collaborating on Pittsburgh Public Theater's ELECTRA. Ted is starting his 11th season as artistic director. Some of his recent productions include God of Carnage, The Royal Family, and Oedipus, that City Paper called a highly compelling piece of theater, and the Post-Gazette called a theatrical luxury. Catherine has performed at many theaters across the nation, including Merrimack Rep, Carnegie Hall, and the Guthrie, where she spent many years as a company member. She wrote and performs the solo show Corsetless, which is being adapted to film and has toured internationally. The New York Times called her performance in A Child's Guide to Innocence harrowing and heartbreaking. Ted and Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, it's my 12th year, not my 11th.
Oh my gosh, I should
That extra year was a hard one.
You can't rob him of that.
No, I want that year.
You got it.
That was a lot of shows.
12 years. 3 shows a season.
Yeah, and producing 6.
Yes.
So, yeah, but other than that, we're good.
And you are just about to start the next season. You had 1 week of rehearsals. How did it go?
Well, I thought it was pretty great, but Catherine was on stage the whole time, so she can tell us. But I thought it was a remarkable start to the Public's 37th season. I mean, how many theaters in this country are opening their seasons with Sophocles and with such a splendid, amazing cast? So I'm delighted, but I'd love to know what the artists on stage are thinking.
It's been amazing, actually. The week was fantastic. I actually just emailed a friend of mine who was asking me, and I said it was beyond expectation because there's just such an extraordinary group of actors. Lisa Harrow is in the cast, who is phenomenal and someone that I have looked up to for a long time, and it's filled with wonderful company. Every single person, even the smallest roles, are filled with incredibly strong actors, which is exciting for me because sometimes when you have a character like this, a titular character, you feel the weight of carrying a show, and in this case, I don't have that. We went through the first read-through, and Ted picked such an extraordinary group that the ensemble sense is incredible. I mean, it's a ride, and when you get on that ride and those actors are performing around you, you just have to follow it through to the finish, and it's fast and it's beautiful and it has incredible emotional highs, and it's like a rock and roll show. It's like a Greek rock and roll show. So it was great. It's been very exciting to discover that because I didn't know what I would be walking into. You know, you don't say no to something like a role like ELECTRA, but it's a rare theater that's capable of doing that. It's a rare theater that's capable of taking on that sort of a play, which is a huge challenge and a huge risk, and putting it at the opening of their season and doing it with such integrity and so much support. So I'm thrilled to be here. So.
And Ted, this is your 3rd Greek drama with the Public. You've done Oedipus and Medea. How is ELECTRA different from the past 2 shows you've done?
Well, all of the plays are very different, and all of the playwrights of the Greek plays are different. This one is a little more brutal, perhaps. It's not as plot-driven, it's more psychological, and therefore in some ways more modern. It surprises us how real and how believable each little instant of the play is. And I think it's because Sophocles has written a psychological drama as opposed to a mythological story. They all have tremendous charisma, these plays, that you can't take your eyes off of them. They're like Star Wars. They're just fabulous stories. But this one, because of the complicated psychology and personality of ELECTRA and her entire family who are part of the plot, I think it's a deeper, darker drama and a very, very exciting ride. You know, they're brief plays. The Greek plays are under an hour and a half. They play in 1 act. They're like a speeding train. But this one, I think, is unique in its understandability.
Catherine, I feel like ELECTRA is one of the most strong characters in the history of plays, and she's so driven, and every word and action goes towards this direction. How do you approach such a strong character like that?
She is. Those are wonderful things to say about her. It's interesting. I think for me, initially, the first thing that I wanted to deal with, or that I needed to deal with even before the auditions, was the idea of a character like this inside of a tragedy. And why are we drawn to tragedy? You know, what about that? And the conclusion I came to, which is not enlightening, it's not sort of a genius stroke, but it was really important for me, is that she's not dying. You know, she's not, despite everything that's against her, she's fighting to live. And that for me was the road in for her, because it's the thing I admire the most about her. I think it's extraordinary. She has one beautiful line about, do I not have a life? And the value of that life, despite the fact that she was born and raised a princess and then essentially becomes enslaved in her mother's house and sort of sees herself as a political prisoner inside her family. She's taking that life and she's using it for the purpose that she thinks is the most noble and the most important. That was the road in for me, because I didn't want that strength, and that she has so much power, but I didn't want that power to shut the audience or myself out of the motivations behind that and the beauty behind that. There's a humanity behind that. Even though Sophocles raises the question for us as to whether or not she's doing the right thing, or even perhaps the most courageous thing, because she's living in a place of absolutism, a place of near certainty. And when you live there, it's questionable as to, it's a noble and inspiring integrity that is often the integrity that we have in most of our heroes, but it also shuts out questions, and it shuts out understanding and compassion, and she's gotten to that point when we start the play. So it's an interesting journey for her to be coming from that, desperately trying to use that life force to serve what she is certain is right. And then what happens as the action unfolds through the course of the play, and things rapidly change for her and her status changes. And
it's a big, gorgeous part. I got to tell you, all of that is true, but what it really is the greatest female role in Greek tragedy. It is the Hamlet of Greek tragedy. It is the role that tests an actor. It's the supreme role for a classical actress, I think. I was beside myself with joy when I realized that Catherine, first of all, wanted to do it, was able to do it, and then shocked me with how much she brought into the rehearsal room to transform even what I had thought of the play into something even greater, even more exciting, even deeper, even more theatrical. So the short answer is it's the role of a lifetime, but I also think that Catherine Eaton is the actress of a lifetime for it. It's one of those parts that comes along in an actor's life very rarely, and I'm very proud that the Public Theater is able to create this opportunity for her and for the others, because every single part, as you said, is exciting and deep and complicated and surprising, and you don't want to miss one word of the show. It's so beautifully written by Sophocles, and a fabulous, fabulous translation by Frank McGuinness, who's a great Irish writer, and his own plays are very beautiful. We did the American premiere of The Bird Sanctuary, one of his most wonderful plays, so we're friends of his, and I love him, but he's a great translator.
It's incredibly accessible, this translation.
It's really good.
And Ted, you grew up in Greece, so
yeah.
I feel like you probably have such a much deeper understanding of the context of the play and the words. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm not sure my understanding is deep. I feel comfortable with Greek plays. They don't feel foreign to me. I used to walk to school in Greece and pass by the Temple of Apollo on a daily basis.
That's so great.
So when we talk about Apollo, he was sort of like my next door neighbor. I find them very accessible. I've always thought of them as exciting stories. I do speak Greek, and I'm able to look at the translations and find which ones are truer and most authentic and the most exciting. I went through several, a dozen translations before I decided on Mr. McGuinness's version, and I think what's interesting to me is that the Irish adapters and the Irish translators seem to have their ear tuned into the Greek more readily than others, perhaps because there's so much music in their language, and their storytelling technique is so developed. But it matches the Greek beautifully.
If I may, though, I must say I disagree. I do think Ted does have a deeper understanding of them. I've worked with other directors on the Greek plays, particularly when I was in graduate school and so forth, and I have to say, I went into the audition with my own set of ideas about the part and just wanting to bring everything I could because I wanted to do the role, and the reputation of Pittsburgh Public precedes it. It's, you know, well known in New York as being an extraordinary theater, and so I went in wanting that, and then I did my piece, and Ted took me aside and spoke to me about Electra and spoke to me about the play, and I suddenly was so grateful simply for that. I felt as if I was getting an education in the audition room with him about this play and this part, and it made me want the part more and want to be here more to experience more of that. But I also felt like I was being given a gift, which has possibly never happened in an audition for me. I've never walked away feeling like I understand more deeply now this part from an audition. You know, it was extraordinary, and that was 10 minutes, and then of course there was a callback, and more of that happened in the callback, those
were fun auditions.
They were fabulous auditions.
Well, look, I have a cousin named Antigone, all right, and my uncle is Socrates. So it's kind of second nature for me. But I'm glad you had a good time.
And I'm not alone. Other company members, we've said.
No, I have heard that from others. That the auditions were very exciting. But this also points up how rare these plays are. These are tremendous opportunities for all of us, the director, all the designers, the actors, and the audience, to experience a masterpiece that is rarely produced in a theater space, the O'Reilly, which is perfectly built for Greek drama. That gorgeous surround of the actors is what we experience when we see plays in Greece on a larger scale at Epidaurus or the Theater of Dionysus in Athens. It's the perfect theater to see Electra in. So that's part of the fun here, because we know we're moving into a space that's going to welcome this play in an accurate way.
We have just a little bit more time, and I want you to tell us quickly about the set and the costumes.
Well, it's a Grecian production in the sense that it reminds us of another time, but it's not a vase painting. It's more artful and more surprising than that. The set designer is James Noon, who's done everything from Amadeus and the Importance of Being Earnest and Metamorphoses and Cabaret and A Midsummer Night's Dream. He's a genius. And he's designed a monumental set with all of the epic brutality that Electra and the city of Mycenae in which it takes place requires. The costumes are by Gabriel Barry, who is one of the greatest designers in the world, in my opinion. She did A Midsummer Night's Dream for us recently, and many others. She did Medea for us and launched this series of Greek plays in a very high style. It's, in translation, a completely understandable show and a gorgeous looking production. But most importantly, I think it's got a beautiful cast and a tremendous leading lady, beautifully supported by all of them. Lisa Harrow is back with the company after so many brilliant performances for us, and she looks very happy to be back and to be working with Catherine and her other castmates. So it's all very good news for the Public Theater right now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. It sounds like you have such a great relationship started, and I look forward to seeing what comes of it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Pittsburgh Public Theater presents Electra, running September 29th through October 30th. For tickets, call 412-316-1600 or buy online at ppt.org. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.